Hello and welcome back after our 1 week hiatus, which again, I'm not sorry for. This is the Soundproof podcast. My name is Brendan Lewis. I go by Mr. WeedDog46 on the internet, and I am, as always, joined by Jake Muller, who goes by _Major Bowman on the internet. Major Bowman _? Major _ Bowman?
That's...
I forget.
There's an underscore between every letter.
It's M_8. Anyway, we're here for episode 14 of Soundproof, and this week what we have for you is kind of like a metagame primer is what I've been kind of saying in my head as we are going into our first major events of the 2020 season. We have our first results from local events from the 2020 season, so we're in a pretty fledgling metagame, and we're going to try and just give you a whole bunch of information here to try and get you prepared for Dallas, for Bochum, for any of the other upcoming regionals. And of course, in the second half of our show this week, we are joined by none other than the creator of VGCStats himself, Zach Carlson.
Yeah, really exciting. Zach is super knowledgeable about some of the goings-on of the metagame just because he spends so much time crunching these numbers, hosting large tournaments, very, very large tournaments himself. So he has a first-hand view of kind of what's going on. And he's been running these since, the release of these games, so he's pretty much at the front of the metagame as far as, seeing these trends and what's going on and what's doing well, what's not, etc. So it's a really cool conversation with him later on. But, of course, we do start every podcast with our dash number mods, and this is episode 14. So we're talking about the 14ers.
And I just looked over the list real briefly, and this is not a...
They're all boring. This might be the most boring list.
Not a stellar week for the Dash 14.
No.
There's like a couple in there that I can are sort of okay. But anyway, the first one, 14, is Kakuna.
Wow.
Which is just like a boring intentionally designed to be boring. So,
right.
You don't get to... Until level 10, between levels 7 and 10, there's nothing to write home about that entire line. And then if you want to have a conversation about Beedrill, we can come back and do that in 2 weeks. But Kakuna, again, just
not only can we will.
We shall. Number 114 is Tangela, which is again kind of a boring one to me.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's not really readily available if you're playing through the Gen 1 games, and so you're not really going to randomly run into it.
Right. That was the first thing you have to and. When you were playing Red and Blue and you didn't have access to online guides, find out where your Tangela was. Then it's barely in the game. Erica has one and that's it.
Right. And it never it never had a feature in the anime either. And there was no main character that was using it. It's yeah.
Why does it have shoes?
Okay, very quick sidetrack. There's an Instagram account called Pokemon con Scarpe, which means Pokemon wearing shoes in Spanish. And you saying that reminded me of how funny that account is. They just Photoshop shoes onto Pokemon, and I'm pretty sure I've seen Tangela on there, but I followed that account religiously. Anyway,
Tangela is always wearing shoes. So, but anyway, 214 to me maybe the best of the week here is Heracross, which I think is a really cool Pokemon. But actually another one that if you were playing through Silver and Gold, you would not there was. Even if you had the strategy guide, I just don't know how you would ever find a Heracross. Yeah,
it's only a headbutt trees, right?
Right. Yeah, it's but only certain ones, and which one it is change it. It's trying to find
Feebas,
yeah, and Ruby and Sapphire, where it's just impossible. But it's a cool Pokemon. It was cool in the anime. It's had its moments here and there in VGC.
I know Bug Gem Heracross
very
is a
few
thing.
and far between, but it's been there.
It's one of the few things that could Oko Cresselia back in the day.
Right, yeah.
And then
I think the Mega could too, right? Assuming it wasn't
probably,
yeah. So that's kind of a cool one. 314, not a cool one, Illumise. I think we had Volbeat last week. I don't like either of them, and I like Gen 3 a lot. And they're just kind of random, forgettable bug types. And even when I was playing through Ruby and Sapphire, that was before they had Prankster. So they didn't even get that. It was just Volbeat using Tail Glow, and I think Illumise's signature move was Flatter.
That makes sense.
Great.
Yeah. And Gen 3 had they had Plusle and Minun, which are really cool. We talked about those when we went through their numbers, and then they missed the mark with these because these are just kind of entirely worthless. And, Plusle and Minun were clearly meant to showcase like the new like 2v2
minus.
doubles mechanic.
Yeah.
Because
And
they were both like they were. Well, no, like those didn't exist yet, but they like Helping Hand was like their signature move.
No,
Like it would always use
existed
it.
in Gen 3.
Not hidden abilities. They don't
Oh,
think
not
like
hidden
plus and minus
abilities.
were anything. Yeah.
Did they not have plus and minus? I thought that was just their ability.
No, I think they had like static or
I
lightning
don't
rod or
think
something.
so. I'm like pretty sure they had plus and minus.
All right, we can deal with that later.
Let's fight
Anyway,
about it right now.
point
Let's
being,
fight right
Volbeat
now about it.
Nilamize, boring.
Boring. 414 is Motham.
Boring.
Like a lot of boring bug types.
Oh yeah, 2 in a row.
It's,
3 bugs in a row too.
Yeah, and we had Kakuna as well.
Like Motham, just like why?
I mean, it's better than what's the other one? It's non-flying counterpart, Burmy and Wormadam. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I couldn't think of it.
I kind of like Wormadam more. I like the like 3 form aesthetic thing.
Regardless, still forgettable.
Yeah.
And similarly forgettable is Simisear, which I believe wasn't it voted like the worst Pokemon of all time? Or
Was it
like
really?
That? Yeah, dude. Remember there was like a big vote that I think it might have just been from Nintendo or TPCI or something like that, where it was like vote for your favorite Pokemon, and Simisear had the least votes of all the Pokemon.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. We're 2/3 of the way through these monkeys now, so we only have 2 more episodes.
We got another month of monkeys. 614 is Beartic, which
it's cool.
I don't like that
Beartic.
much. I think it's underdesigned. It's just like it has
Kinda.
ice beard, and then it's just like this big white body. Like I feel like they could have done more with it.
And like it's like Bryson's signature mon, wasn't it, in like Gen 5?
Yeah.
And I feel like they could have made it a bit like stronger.
Yeah.
Like, as it stands, it's just kind of weak and boring. But I don't know. It's fun. I like polar bears. They're like cute, and I think Beartic's well designed. I don't know. I don't think you can do much more with it without it looking like too cartoony.
I guess that's a fair argument. I thought it was interesting that part of like the battle design or the competitive design of it was like he swim, and he got all the water moves and like Aqua Jet and Swift Swim and no water typing, but he has Aqua Jet.
Yeah.
714 is Noibat. I actually like this line. I think Noibat and Noivern are pretty cool.
I agree. I really like them.
Yeah, they're not great, but they're not great Pokemon competitively, but they're cool. They're neat. Yeah.
I like purple. Like
that's
a recurring
like
theme. I really like purple.
Like that's not the reason that I like them, but
it's like part of it. I think they look good aesthetically. I think they're like the sound-based design is cool. Like they're bats, and they have a lot of like sound moves. Like Boom Burst was created for them, I think.
Yep.
Something that's really neat. I really like Noivern's Cry, but I will talk about that next week when we get to Noivern. But Noibat's cool. I like it.
They were fun in the anime too. Ash had a Noivern.
Yeah.
I think he hatched it or something, and then Noivern was like kind of a badass for the rest of the series. I think that was the XY. But anyway, the last one of the week is Raboot, which weirdly is like my favorite of the line. I think Raboot is the coolest, and I think a lot of times it's just kind of like these middle Pokemon just have like teenager syndrome, where it's just like, okay, we have this cute starter and this like big older thing, and now we need to put them together somehow, and that's how we end up with Thwacky. But Raboot is cool.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not a huge fan, but that's like my least favorite of the 3 lines anyway. So
same.
It's all right.
All right, so that's it for our 14s. Of course, we'll be back with more monkeys next week, among other things.
The worst monkeys, in my opinion.
Are those the pores? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, God. Only a month to go. But we are going to jump on into our ladder here, which Jake has kindly selected 10 of the top 11 teams, which
we still have pretty readily
I'm
available
kind of surprised
replays.
about that.
I am too. We have like majors starting soon.
Yeah.
But,
but anyway, we'll go ahead and jump through these here. And the first team is some of the stuff that I hate the most. Grimmsnarl, Mudsdale, God, and then Arcanine, Rotom Wash, Togekiss, and Duraludon. So it's pretty standard, but it does have kind of like that Grimmsnarl, Mudsdale stuff that I just hate.
Yeah, that's almost certainly Swagger Grimmsnarl with Own Tempo Horse, which is pretty cool. The rest of it is, I mean, like Arcanine Rotom is a pretty good defensive core, and then you have like Duraludon for like breaking through. stuff offensively. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that's usually the Dynamax on this team.
I would think
Possibly
so. Well,
Mudsdale.
no, Mudsdale. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mudsdale probably does quite a bit. Number 2 for us this week is Togekiss, Dragapult, Gyarados, Grimmsnarl, Excadrill, and Rotom Cut. So this is very good stuff. See, this is like definitely a lot of what most good stuffs teams will be looking like right now.
Yeah,
With
that's
the
another like
the
Gyarados
Togedrag
is
Drill
running.
Core. Yeah.
Yeah, Gyarados is running Llama Lod now with Swagger Grimmsnarl partner. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we're seeing on this team. We have like the Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult, which is becoming pretty popular as a core. I like Rotom Cut is fun. I think grass types are like good, but also terrible. But Rotom has some of the better properties of grass types without having some of the negatives. So I think it's something that can be used for sure.
Yeah, there just aren't a lot of grass types.
Yeah.
It's the problem.
Well, there's one on the next. There's two on the next team, actually.
Speaking of other grass types, we've got a team of Corviknight, Darmanitan, Excadrill, Arcanine, Whimsicott, and Appleton.
That is an Appleton, yeah.
And I've tried. I don't know what it does. I've like asked people, and they're just kind of like, oh, it's kind of like slow. You can put it in Trick, but it's not slower than any of the other Trick Room sweepers.
It's 30, isn't it?
I thought it was 50. Maybe it's 30. You could be right.
I thought it was 30 because I thought it was slower than
so maybe
Rhyperior.
That's what it is then. It's just a Rhyperior check. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that it kind of speaks to the dearth of grass types.
Yeah.
That it would see play, especially like why wouldn't you just put like I hate Ferrothorn, but like if you're gonna use a grass types, couldn't you use Ferrothorn there?
Maybe like a grass that's not weak to fire is kind of cool.
Oh, and it
has
thick fat too.
Oh, true.
So I don't know. So Appleton, like it's a thing. I've definitely seen it on the ladder, but I don't personally understand it myself. So if anybody wants to tell me exactly what it does and why it's used, I'd be very
actually
much
like
open
looking
to
at
that.
this team. There's like 0 Charizard checks.
Appleton is not a Charizard check.
Well, I did say 0. But...
maybe it's Flashfire Arc.
Oh my god.
Number 4 on the ladder, speaking of Charizard, is Whimsicott, Charizard, Pikachu, Darmanitan, Dracovish, and Ferrothorn. That is just like a whole lot of like setting up Tailwind and clicking buttons.
Yeah, that like setting up Tailwind and clicking buttons is what you do with Darmanitan, Whimsicott, and it's what you do with Dracovish, Whimsicott, and it's what you do with Charizard, Whimsicott. So this team like probably falls apart without Whimsicott. Like if there's a game where you don't bring Whimsicott, I'd be kind of surprised. Like maybe Pikachu because you can just like paralyze everything.
Yeah, you got an alternative way of.
Also, that's like you're relying on Pikachu. Which...
Also, when you're using Ferrothorn, you're still clicking button slot 2, clicking the X button. The next team on the list is number 5, Excadrill, Gastrodon, Dragapult, Corviknight, Rotom Heat, and Conkeldurr, which I think is a cool like kind of anti-meta Pokemon.
Yeah, I like Conkeldurr. It like struggles against some of the popular stuff, like obviously Togekiss. Just...
It was a lot better when there was more Tyranitar.
Yeah, definitely. It like dunks on Tyranitar. It does well against Excadrill. It can kind of pressure some other stuff. Like Mach Punch is a good move still, but I feel like it kind of has to be. I'm actually surprised this team is so high without like Trick Room. I feel like Conkeldurr thrives in Trick Room a lot better than other stuff. But
it does pretty well against stuff like Duraludon too, which I guess is
true. Yeah, and if you're running Guts, you can kind of just ignore the Rotoms and even like hope that they wisp you or something.
Yeah, or hope they don't wisp you and run Iron Fist.
True.
6 on the ladder. I'm always afraid of like I will never wisp a Conkeldurr. 6 on the ladder is a team of Passimian, Chandelure, Milotic, Whimsicott, Duraludon, and Dracozolt. So somebody is really afraid of being intimidated, and I guess you can also take advantage of like certain max moves coming in and stuff like that. But to double down on it is like, keep your Arcanine away from me.
Right. I don't know. I feel like that's not worth it. Like the only thing on this team that doesn't want to be intimidated is Dracozolt anyway. Yeah. It's like I don't know if 2 anti-intimidated
villains is necessary. I just have to think it doesn't have too much to do with the intimidate at that point.
Probably not. Yeah. Although I don't know, like why else would you ever use Passimian?
It's because of the max moves. When you get dropped by a max move, it activates Defiant.
Well, like there's one that does that. One relevant one at least.
Well,
I don't know.
I guess a couple of them do. I don't know. This is the whole team is just kind of like a take on Sajan's team. It has like 4 or 5 pieces of it.
True. Yeah.
And then they threw Milotic on. 7 on the ladder this week is Bronzong, Togekiss, Rhyperior, Dragapult, Gyarados, Conkeldurr. And this is the kind of team that when Rhyperior started to be good, that I thought it would start to eventually find its way onto. They were like throwing it on Hard Trick Room, like Rhyperior and Torkoal and stuff like that. And I think it's much better in this kind of team.
I agree. This is like a really cool balance between Trick Room stuff and like faster things. You have like Dragapult, Togekiss, and if something like Dragon Dance possibly gives you some speed. Gyarados can run Dragon Dance too. Both of those function very well outside of Trick Room. And then you have Rhyperior, Conkeldurr, which I just mentioned like is better in Trick Room. I honestly just forgot this team was here. So wow, good timing. I'm really good
nice
at
job,
these segues. But yeah, a really flexible kind of team. I'm a fan. I'm probably Bronzong with a way to pop Rhyperior's weakness policy, whether that's like Bulldoze or Body Press or something.
Metal Claw. Doesn't even get that. It doesn't have claws.
No, it doesn't have claws. You get Iron Head.
Okay,
Gyro Ball yourself.
Gyro yourself.
Oh, Gyro Ball. Duh.
Heavy Slam yourself.
Yeah.
Number 8 on the ladder is Dragapult, Togekiss, Lapras, Excadrill, Chandelure, and Tyranitar. And this is it's kind of interesting because this team is kind of like what I would say is like kind of a blend of the old and the new. And obviously old is relative at this point, but it does have that Dragapult, Togekiss, Excadrill core, and then Lapras is something that's like very much starting to show, like just ice types in general are starting to show up on a lot of teams because of how well they handled that core. Where if you give something like Lapras or Darmanitan or spoilers, but Zach is talking about freaking Vanillux. Just like ice types do a lot of good things, especially against that core because they hit Togekiss and Dragapult really hard.
I think especially once Gigantamax Lapras is legal too, that'll be
nuts.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it coming off of an ice move or a water move that it uses?
Ice.
Ice,
yeah,
right?
It's
okay.
ice.
It's way better than setting Hail.
Definitely, yeah. Especially on a team that you don't really want to reset your sand on.
Right. 9 on the ladder is Hamster Mania's latest team that features Gothitelle, Dusclops, Torkoal, Rhyperior, Togekiss, and Gyarados. So there's definitely like a pretty hard TR element there, but he's also kind of got Gyarados and Togekiss to throw some support. Kind of an interesting team. All of his teams look a little bit different than most of the things that I see on the ladder. So.
No, for sure. That's kind of been a trend throughout his career, but he does well with them, so can't fault him for it.
Right, and then the last team, number 10 for us this week, is a team of Arcanine, Whimsicott, Vanillux. Okay, I didn't realize it was on another team. I could have just... But anyway, Inteleon, Duraludon, and Sylveon. So that's a little bit different. I know Inteleon has been seeing kind of like fringe usage, and it's not terrible. I wouldn't be shocked if it like knows Blizzard on this team, and that's like, part of what it does. But it's kind of interesting. Snipe Shot is neat to kind of like go around Gastrodon. It's one of the things that can like reliably knock out Rhyperior, which is good. So yeah, it's kind of a neat mon.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it. Like, I'm curious to see the full set on Inteleon because like the only moves I could think that it would run for sure would be like Snipe Shot, Ice Move, probably Blizzard with Vanillux.
Right.
And then I don't know.
It gets U-turn. It learns Soak, which is interesting. Yeah. It gets some neat moves. It kind of like it was kind of like designed that way too, to be like Secret Agent, Jack of all trades, like popping in, popping out, using all sorts of different moves.
Makes sense.
Shoot water from its finger or from a gun, apparently.
Yeah, for that
I was like, oh my god,
that is so silly, but I love it.
They went really far. Just as a gun. They just gave Inteleon a gun. No more shooting from its fingers like a pleb. Anyway, that's it for the ladder this week. So there's some interesting stuff, and we will be talking a little bit more about it as we go forward here, as we get into our session with Zach. But we're going to talk about some of the live events that kicked off last weekend. The most notable of which was an 86 participant mid-season in New York City. So that was really cool. I saw pictures and people tweeting about that. Always good to see P-Don's getting some support there, and obviously New York City is a really cool location to have these tournaments. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to kind of just go through and highlight some of the other mid-seasons. There were, I think Zach said there are 15 up there on the ladder right now, and like half of them are top 8. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the highlights, and then we're gonna omit the Galler weeklies just because we have Zach on later, so we'll get to talk about those at that time.
Yeah, this New York midseason, like a really cool throwback to like the old days when New York had these huge locals, when like all the best players in the region would come out to them. There are a lot of big names here, and some really cool teams came out of them too. Like you said, there were 86 people, which is one of the biggest locals we've had in a long time, rivaling some of the numbers we had back in the golden days of.
Right.
I think
14,
like they had
15.
they had an over 100 person midseason in like New Jersey one time.
Yeah, that was fun.
Back in like 16 or 17, but yeah, some cool stuff.
Yeah, so we'll run down the teams here. God. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was won by Caleb Ryer. It's fine, we're friends. I'm allowed to give him a little credit. But he's been kind of he's like declared himself the purveyor of beat up Whimsicott and Arcanine, which is just like and this is kind of like the same 6 that he's been using for quite a while now. He does stream sometimes, so I've popped in and razzed him a little bit and then.
Yeah.
Checked out his team, but it is like as one-dimensional as it is, and like as easy as it is to shut down with Togekiss, it is like really scary to make as like a game 2 or a game 3 adjustment where you, like, all of a sudden like you lead something that can't stop it. And I believe Caleb's running like 4 attacks Arcanine right now too, so he can use like play
I
like,
think it was Assault Vest,
Starfall, Lightning, Fighting I guess would be the other one, and Flare Blitz obviously. So yeah,
this team I wouldn't even call this team one-dimensional as the thing, because there's like 3 different.
The strategy is one-dimensional.
Oh, well, sure, yeah.
And the team definitely isn't. That's
Yeah, because I know it was Lum, Gyarados, Swagger, Grimmsnarl, and then it was Weakness Policy, Duraludon. You can like Earthquake yourself when you're in Max form. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this team. This is like he's definitely been running this since like very close to the beginning of the format, which is something that. It's something like me and Brendan both share different group chats with Caleb, and I know that the one I am in with Caleb constantly hounds him to stick to a team and like learn it, as opposed to like trying new things for like 10 games each and then moving on.
Yeah.
And so
I do.
It's paid off.
It's really hard to play against.
I know. Yeah, no, cool for Caleb. I think this is his first like big tournament win. I don't know if he's won a smaller PC or something.
I'm sure he has. I mean, like I can't think of anything, but I'm sure he has. He goes
this is certainly a notable finish, though.
Yeah, definitely. Number 2, the other finalist was James Evans. The most notable Pokemon on his team is the Hitmontop, which is kind of his signature Pokemon at this point.
Yeah.
Alongside Excadrill, Tyranitar, Rotom Heat, Gastrodon, and Togekiss. So like a pretty standard good stuff score, and then you throw the Hitmontop on there, which it makes sense. It's an Intimidate. It gives you a way to like punch Snorlax in the face.
It's really good against sand too. That's
true, yeah. And then it has Helping Hand or Wide Guard or what have you. It's always had that kind of like nice little toolkit available to it. And then our top 4, the other top 4 people were Jeremy Odena and Joseph Ugardi, who are arguably 2 of the best players in the country right now, based on their ultra finishes. Jeremy is running a team of Tyranitar, Duraludon, Rotom, Dracovish, Arcanine, and Snorlax. So some pretty standard stuff there.
Tyranitar without Excadrill isn't super common. I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, Jeremy's always been a big Tyranitar player, going back to like most of the other formats. And
me too.
I mean, it wasn't always as tied to Excadrill as it is right now.
Oh yeah,
it was like always like kind of a better mon in its own right. He actually, I think he took Mega Tyranitar to Worlds in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's always kind of used them on. And then Joseph was running a hard Trick Room team featuring Torkoal, Snorlax, Scrafty, Butterfree, Rhyperior, and Dusclops. So only one setter, but a whole bunch of sweepers. Scrafty, kind of like Gyarados right now, can run Moxie and like be really scary in Trick Room to a lot of teams. And obviously Butterfree is a damn menace. But yeah, if Trick Room goes up, you're going to have a hard time beating that.
Yeah. Going into top 8, 5th place was Jake Skirchak making his return. He was running Mandibuzz, Dragapult, not Dragapult, Ferrothorn, Rotom Wash, Arcanine, and Sylveon. Mandibuzz, one of like the few Tailwind setters left, so I would imagine it's running that.
It doesn't get to run its seed sets really anymore. Yeah.
No, yeah. But some cool stuff. This is definitely more of like a kind of bulky offense type team.
Sylveon stays underplayed, man. I don't know.
I know, I agree.
It's really shocking. I just like I feel like it's being slept on really hard, and I can't like I understand that Excadrill is a good Pokemon, but like it still matches up like relatively okay against stuff like Duraludon. I don't understand.
Excadrill, it can't switch into it is the thing though. Like
right,
a lot of teams
right.
have Excadrill as their fairy resist, and that doesn't really work when you need your Excadrill to be offensive and not defensive.
Yeah, unless it's the best set, right?
Yeah.
Another top 8 team, Chalky Hornseen, was running Jellicent, which is another mon that I think is being slept on big time, alongside Rhyperior, Togekiss, Arcanine, Ferrothorn, and Dragapult. Is that Edu 6, or is it just like similar?
He had on Hydreigon.
Oh, okay, so it's Dragapult. That's the Dragapult slot.
Yeah.
So that's a good kind of like semi-room team, bulky offense, I think, like you said, Jake. We have another super hard Trick Room team. Is that the same? Oh, no, it's different. There's Butterfree, Dusclops, Hatterene, which has very much fallen from grace after it kind of took over the format for a week. Torkoal, Conkeldurr, and Rhyperior.
Indeed, Hatterene was like the wave.
Yeah,
at the very beginning.
For like
now...
4 days, and then and then the final top 8 team, before we just kind of go through some of the highlights in top 16, was Thomas McCarr, who was running a team of Dracovish, Rotom Wash. So there's that's kind of the one situation where you could think about like maxing Rotom to get the rain going there.
True.
For a double water, and then Arcanine, Tyranitar, Excadrill, and Whimsicott. So pretty standard 6 thing as well.
There's some other neat stuff throughout the rest of the 5-2s. It was just top 8 cut, but 9th through 19th place were all 5-2 as well. There is an Eldegoss that went 5-2.
Yeah, Eldegoss is kind of like blowing up since Wolf used it.
Yeah.
Like he has the most popularity and influence on it of anybody on the format right now. So
right.
It makes sense to see some of the stuff that he's using.
Toxtricity Drampa.
I was a lot of shouting.
A lot of shouting.
It's like instruct spread move. I guess there's the.
Does Punk Rock apply to your teammate too?
I don't think so. I think it's just you. I don't quote me on that. I feel like it would see a lot more play if it was a little more universal. The team that Sohybe's running there is like kind of good stuff. See Charizard stuff as well. I think with like Whimsicott, Charizard, Mimikyu is kind of like a pretty strong core, and then the ground type Trick Room option with Mudsdale, and then he's got 2 hard hitters. That's like a very like that's a Charizard team through and through. Yeah.
Tommy's got a pretty cool team. Back to his kind of rain roots. He's a big rain fan. He's got Pelipper, Ludicolo, and then Germanitan, Butterfree, Duraludon, and Whimsicott. So some fun stuff there.
He told me he doesn't think rain is good, though. I'm not sure I agree with him.
I don't know. I'm conflicted on rain because...
The jury's kind of out, but I think that it's better than Tommy is currently giving it credit for.
Probably,
and he's usually the first one to tell you that it's good, so maybe there's something about that. Everything else pretty similar looking. There's a Haxorus that came in somewhere, which is kind of a cool Pokemon. That to me is kind of like discount Excadrill because it's just kind of like it's always running Steel Spike and
Quake,
the ground, and then it just like also has Wormwind, but it has big stats and it benefits from there being less Intimidate around, so you can understand the usage, but not like a huge fan. And then on that same team is just going to continue to highlight this because I think it's an important Pokemon right now is Lapras. It's just because like ice types are a thing. Unfortunately, Abomasnow is not one of them. I'm trying.
The brand is in shambles.
It's just not that good. It doesn't do any damage. Like without the Mega, it's just like it has no stats, and if you use Life Orb, anyway, I could talk a long time about it. But let's just kind of run through some of these other. I have just kind of like the top 8 mid-seasons, and we'll just kind of talk about some of the notable stuff that was showing up. And one of the things that Zach talked about, and the first one that I see here is from the Gaithersburg tournament. Oh, and it was Ed's team, actually, who I forgot he was testing this with me, is Vanillix. And something that I mentioned as well is that ice types are kind of like doing a thing right now. And Vanillix is one of the good ones, be it Scarf or Specs, if you want to support it a little bit more, or some of the support sets with Aurora Veil. It's kind of a cool Pokemon right now.
No, I'm a big fan of that. Kevin Swastik did well at a couple mid-seasons with another version of like Sun. He was running like Charizard,
Yeah, his
Torkoal,
is cool. Yeah.
Mimikyu, and what's the horse? Mudsdale.
The horse.
The
Yeah.
horse. He
I
ran that
think
at 2. There was like a doubleheader that weekend.
yeah, I
And
think
got
that's a
first
cool
and
team.
second with them.
Because you kind of like forego Mimic or Whimsicott in favor of like a much stronger Trick Room team, and then you can still just airstream yourself up.
Right.
And yeah, it's yeah to have a like fire types on both sides of Trick Room and Tailwind is like really scary. Spread
Yeah,
fire
absolutely.
moves. Yeah. Let's see. There's not a whole lot going on in that one. There's a Lapras. With Dylan Salvanera was able to win with Lapras in an Illinois midseason showdown, and then of course Alex Underhill
Ugh.
was using some kind of parish stuff. I assume that Lapras, but he
Double
has
goth.
Lapras as well.
Wait, oh my God, Double Goth. Can we call that team? It's not just a phase.
It's not just a phase, Mom. Double goth. A lifetime of goth. But yeah, Lapras I think is kind of like an interesting Pokemon that's starting to pop up because of how well it deals with opposing water types. And also because ice types are like I said, kind of a thing right now. And there are also 4. There are 4 goths in this cut. There are 3
Two of them on the same
Gothitels,
team,
and then
but,
there's also a Gothorite on Alex's team. So that was something, and spoiler again, that Zach kind of mentioned that Gothitelle has higher IRL usage than in online stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that.
There's a couple Durant in these cuts. Our good friend Dawes would be thrilled about that one, and Jamie. Jamie's been talking about Durant too. But I got 8th in Illinois.
Scary.
With Justin Kruba. What?
Yeah. Durant's scary. I don't like playing.
Yeah, no, it's like
yeah.
Like its speed is the thing. Like it's really fast.
Yeah,
and
it's
Hustle
super
is
fast,
crazy with max moves because you still get the boost.
Yep.
Yeah, and it has some pretty good max moves too. Like obviously, Steel Spike we keep talking about.
Right.
I think it can run Quake. I think it gets Dig.
Yeah, it can do Dark.
Yeah, Dark.
Is it one of the things
Bug with like Flutterby?
Does it get Aerial Ace?
Probably, yeah.
Oh God.
So I did get 8th in Illinois, and also it won a midseason in Barcelona as well. So it does have some results that are kind of trickling in.
Yeah, and one of the teams from that the Barcelona midseason is the that new Parish Trap team with G-Max Sandaconda that's going around that is just ridiculous. Like Sandaconda is not something that you would immediately expect to be like a huge threat, especially if you just like take out its stats and like look at its move pool. And so like it doesn't seem like it does a whole lot, but it can trap you and the residual damage builds up, and it's really fat when it's Dynamaxed, and like Sand Spit is a really good ability. It just like it has enough going for it that like being a ground type that can trap you on a Parish team is like scary.
I desperately need to point out the 8th place team at the Panama City Panama midseason showdown on January 5th because it has double Vish. It's got Arctovish and Dracovish.
You have Dracovish and then Arctovish to check other Dracovish.
Vish.
That's how it works. It's Vish.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, that cut also has a Surfetch that won it. I'm pretty sure I've seen that team laddering quite a bit on. Like I don't know that player by name or like can link it to the, but I've seen that 6 quite a bit on Showdown, like pretty high up on Showdown ladder. Surfetch is like sort of a grass type because Leaf Blade crits a lot. So
yeah.
So you can actually like kind of reliably.
Leak is the item. Or is it Stick? Stick was Farfetch'd, right?
Yes, I don't know if it can use Stick.
There's a different one, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is there one? I honestly have no idea.
I thought so. I don't know.
So yeah, that's kind of what it can do. It's like kind of scary, and fighting types always do well against sand stuff. So
yeah,
you understand why that's there. There's some Trick Room in that cut. There's a Leafeon. Moving on down, there's another Eldegoss in Italy, and that cut also featured a Malamar Centiskorch team, which is pretty interesting. There's a couple of Indeedee, a lot of Trick Room.
A couple of Indeedee Halucha too. That's something that could be kind of fun.
Yeah, Indeedee Halucha. That team that Matteo Agostini is running is like this spiritual successor to Lilligant Torkoal.
Yeah,
It has like Vileplume and and then the Trick Room mode. God, I hate that. We'll move on down. John Hu with Lapras, like the original Lapras guy. Was able to win one of the other mid-seasons in Illinois. There was a Stonejourner in that cut. Adi was running
Pledges.
the pledges with Silvali, who gets only grass pledge because reasons, and Inteleon, which is a really interesting strategy. Keep in mind that does quarter speed. That is the Thunder Wave of old that still exists, and he's running it with Charizard, so he's got a couple of ways to. It's like effectively setting Trick Room, because it lowers speed by that much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what else we got here.
Let's see. I'm moving down to. There's one I wanted to talk about that I completely just blanked on.
There's a Weezing. Are you talking about the Weezing here?
No, but I do love Weezing.
I know you love Weezing.
I don't know. I just lost it.
Yeah, Edu was able to win one of the mid-seasons that was in Portugal this week. He is one of the best players in the world, bar none, and he's done a lot for team building as far as like good stuffs goes. Hasn't, there are people, we talked about Hamster Mania all the time, kind of like developing niche archetypes, but Edu will forever be developing good stuffs. And he's a phenomenal player.
He got second at a mid-season the following day with his Galar Weekly winning team too.
Right,
so.
yeah, it's a good team. Yeah. And then there's a team that looks a lot like Jake Skurchak's. That might actually be the same 6 down at the bottom there. And then 2 of the same team. I believe that was the team that Shoma used in the World Champion Invitational, the Rain team.
Yes, yeah.
With Pelipper, Ludicolo, Dragapult, that is a Togekiss, and then Bronzong and Rhyperior is kind of the Trick Room mode there.
Trista has a history of using Japanese teams as well, so.
Yep, that's true. Yeah. She does. Yeah. Kevin Swastik got second at this other one. That's too bad. But losing to Will Marks, who is using kind of like a good stuffier version of the Charizard team that has Dragapult, which can use Max Flare, so that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind there.
Oh, true.
He's got Whimsicott, Gyarados, he's got Dragapult. Dragapult is on there twice. We'll have to point that out to Zach.
That is true.
And then there's an Excadrill. Those teams always need a ground type. So that's kind of most of the highlights, I think. I think we touched on a lot of the teams. There's this Hard Rain team that has a Barraskewda there. That's kind of cool. Barraskewda's bad. Don't use it. And then there was a midseason in Tulsa that was won by Justin. He just wins all his locals.
Yeah.
Super good player. All right, so that was, I think, is that everything that we wanted to do, Jake?
I believe so.
I just, part of me is just... I'm just like kind of
still
looking
on
and just
boat
like
time?
talking out loud. Oh, I'm really tired. I'm telling you, the whole room is still spinning. It's, but yeah, so that's gonna wrap up. We're gonna talk to Zach in just a couple minutes here. We spent a little extra time talking about some of the teams that were in a lot of the live events over the past weekend, as well as doing the ladder. And we're gonna talk even more about the metagame with Zach here. And again, we are trying to do as much as we can about competitive Pokemon. I know in the second half of our show, sometimes we deviate to talk a little bit more about, arguably more important things. But this time we're really focusing on Pokemon as we go into the regional season. And then after we get that kind of kicked off, we'll go back to a little bit more variety of content. So we're going to take a break for just a couple seconds. Don't go anywhere. And when we return, we will be joined by Zach Carlson, the VGCStats himself, so stay tuned. And welcome back, loyal listeners. We're here with the second part of our metagame primer episode here as we begin our officials journey through the 2020 format here. And now Jake and I are joined by Zach Carlson, who honestly, like, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who that is, like, I don't want to say turn it off, but like get it together.
Fix yourself.
Zach goes by Professor Shroomish on the internet and does run the VGCStats website, which is arguably the best resource that is available to people looking to maybe it's not even arguable. Maybe I shouldn't even say that. But if you're looking to look at team results or get an idea of usage, and I'm going to allow Zach to talk about this a little bit more so that I don't step on his toes here. But anyway, welcome to our show, Zach. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. So would you like me to talk a little more about the gallery or about the site now, or?
Yeah. So let's start just by I'm sure there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I know that there's like a team of people that you work with as far as like data entry and stuff like that. But if you wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about what goes into this whole process before it comes out in a neatly wrapped Gothitelle package.
Sure. Okay, so our website VGCStats has a goal of logging all of the tournaments that happen in real life throughout the entire season, and using these results to produce meaningful data about the Pokemon that are on the teams, because the general idea is that players play online to practice on Battle Spot or Battle Stadium now, or Pokemon Showdown, but there's nobody really tracking the results of these actual tournaments. So that's what we've been doing for the past 2 years. So the process starts by people playing in real life tournaments, Premier Challenges, mid-season showdowns, soon regionals, but we don't have any of those for 2020 yet. And then they send the results of these tournaments to us, which we then put into a spreadsheet. The whole system's done out by my partner on the site, Hugo. His Twitter handle is BullEkana. He's really great. He really basically figured out most of the... Okay, I can say all of the structure of like how this is actually going to work. But anyway, we put all of the results into a spreadsheet, and then on the homepage, you end up with a list of Pokemon with how many championship points that they've earned. And by looking at that, you get an idea of not just how popular these Pokemon are, but like how successful they are as well. Because it's not like the person who gets 10th at the tournament gets the same amount of CP as the person that gets first at the tournament. So that's the basic idea behind what we're doing. We just had our first weekend of 2020 go by, so we've got some interesting stats from our first weekend of real-life tournaments. But on top of that, I've been working on another part of the whole kind of VGCStats package in the past 2 months or so, I'd like to say. I've been running online tournaments as well. They've been called Galar Weeklies. Soon they're going to become Galar Friendlies, because I don't have the resources to run them every week like I've been doing. But these online tournaments have a twofold purpose. I'm running them so that people could get practice for Dallas, because there was, I believe, for a while there was no way to actually practice the VGC format in-game, because they didn't have VGC rules on the ladder. But at the same time, even when they do have VGC rules on the ladder, this is like the only way for you to get best of 3 practice in the tournament drought from Sword and Shield's release to the start of the VGC format, which was the past 6 weeks or so.
Right.
So that's one purpose of the tournaments that I've been running, but they've also been so that I can get my hands on some Pokemon data in the meantime, which has been... It's actually been going very well. I have a mini site. It's gw.vgcstats.com. You can just access it from the main site anyway. But I've been applying the same principles on the main site to the results of my online tournaments, and they're treated as if they were regionals. So I have some good data from those. Yeah.
I actually didn't realize you were doing that. I just pulled that up. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And they're regional size events too. So
yeah, seriously.
Sense.
Yeah, they've been pulling a couple hundred people in the last couple.
That's wild. That's wild.
Crazy.
So a question that I have for you, Zach, is like, this is, for all intents and purposes, like started out as a pretty ambitious project, right? To try and pull these tournaments, especially small, like tournaments that are small, from all over the world. So what kind of went into getting to the point where there was enough community engagement to really like put together like a meaningful sample size?
Okay, so I started this about 2 years ago. Well, it was New Year's Day 2018. And At first we didn't record Premier Challenges. For the first year, we only did mid-season showdowns and bigger. And I went on the Pokemon event locator, and I saw there were like 30 or so mid-season showdowns in the first weekend of 2018. And I went, okay, I'm starting this new project. I'm going to ask people to send me their results from the mid-seasons. If I get like 15 of these 30, I'm going to be really happy with this. I'm going to beg people to retweet my announcement post. And basically by the end of the weekend, I think I got like 24 of the 30 mid-seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and basically what happened was I got what I wanted. Well, that makes it sound very selfish. I'm not doing this for myself for the most part. But I got what I had hoped for. And I also realized, okay, this is getting everyone to post the results of their local tournaments, which normally nobody would ever really see. Like, if you asked me what happened on the Premier Challenge in Springfield, Massachusetts in 2015, I could tell you, oh, I got top 8 with a Slowbro, but I couldn't tell you anything else about the tournament because none of that data is getting recorded anywhere.
Right.
But, yeah, after getting people to share their mid-seasons that first weekend, it made me realize, okay, people actually like sharing their tournament results. And then the next weekend came, and I asked for results again, people sent them in, and then eventually I didn't have to ask for them anymore. People would just post all of their tournament results, and momentum picked up, and here we are now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really just become like standard after locals for people to like.
Somebody just always does it, right?
Yeah, that screenshot of like someone going on Showdown, making a folder for like
I was just
January 4th mid-season showdown in Michigan. Like these are all the top 8. Yeah, that's really cool that like that's essentially something that you sparked yourself. That's something I was going to bring up, so I'm glad you did.
The tournament basically didn't even happen unless you tweet your results in showdown format at VGCStats.
No, yeah, because you're like your 2015 example was perfect too, because like when I grinded locals a lot in 2015 myself, and like never did I think I should like collect everyone's teams and send them to somewhere for safekeeping, or even just like share them for people to look at this one time. But like now that's such a normal thing, and I think that's a really good thing, both for people that want to look at numbers such as you and myself, or anyone else that's interested in like usage stats or whatever. But it's also like a really cool way to see like what regions use certain archetypes, what people are using certain things, like how things progress throughout the year. So really cool.
So anyway, that being what it is, we now are at a point where Zach has an incredibly large amount and valuable data available to him now. So that is what we're going to kind of move on to real quick, Zach, unless you have anything else that you want to say about the site.
I think that's all I've got to say.
Great.
For now.
So we'll start by, I guess, talking about what exactly is going on in the meta. Kind of the idea behind this week's episode is that we wanted to kind of give everybody like, here's what's kind of going on as you approach your Bochum or your Dallas regional. So what is going on? I know we're gonna. That's kind of an open-ended question. So let's try and narrow it down. Can anything be condensed like into like an archetype that is really starting to show up?
Lately, okay. So there have been some changes in the past couple weeks that I've noticed, but if we're talking about just the point that we're at now, it seems like the biggest thing that people are building around is the Togekiss Excadrill Dragapult core, which I know people say like Fire, Water, Grass, Fairy, Dragon, Steel all the time. I think it's more of a singles thing than a doubles thing. But these guys are a Fairy, Dragon, Steel core. The types fit together really nicely.
Even their secondary types too.
Yeah, like Ground, Ghost, and Fly. Yeah. Wow. So these guys they cover each other's weaknesses very well. All 3 of them have max moves all 3 of them can viably be Dynamaxed in the game. And the other two can usually function very well while not Dynamaxed. They'll have really good Dynamax move effects, like Togekiss can boost your speed or give you Misty Terrain to make sure Butterfree doesn't ruin your day or something like that. Excadrill can boost both of your defenses, and Dragapult can lower their attack, or I find myself using Max Wormwind more than Max Phantasm, but Phantasm's really cool if you're using a physical Dragapult.
Or even an Excadrill next to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, building around those three seems to be the most popular way to go as of late. Also, Charizard teams seem to be popping up a lot more in the past, week or two than they were in the first month of the format. And that's not because the Gigantamax was released. It's because Solar Power regular Charizard is really overwhelmingly powerful.
It's too much damage.
Yeah.
It is way too much damage. And there's just, between Whimsicott and usually they run a Duraludon, I think. They're always with Whimsicott.
Yeah.
A lot of the time they like Rhyperior as well. And if they have Rhyperior, then usually they've got, well, not always, but a lot of the time they'll have a Mimikyu or something like that to set Trick Room. But, yeah, those are the two things I have my eyes on the most lately. That Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult Core, and Charizard teams.
So it seems like it's not necessarily an archetype distinction these days, but it's more just cores people are building around, which is kind of a departure from the last metagame, because in these restricted formats rather, you're always going to have these archetypes building naturally just because teams are so centered around those two legendaries.
Right.
So kind of a big departure from that, but I think that's something that we kind of see in these, regional dex formats, and something in 2017, for example, there weren't really huge archetypes. You had Rain, which you could reasonably call an archetype, but past that, most of the things just kind of fall into 2 or 3 mon cores that get kind of filled in afterwards.
Yeah, I remember in 2017 they had the first thing that comes to mind when I think of 2017 is the AFK Arcanine Tapu Fini Kartana core. So 3 mon combinations rather than an entire team.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense given the way that the format is. Kind of like what Jake said, when there's not really they're not forcing centralization by putting 2 of these.
And megas are gone too now, so it's not we can build around those.
Oh, thank God.
Hey,
just wait for the DLC.
No.
So, is there anything that's kind of trending that responds well to these cores, or is it just kind of people are just gonna fight fire with fire at this point?
All right. This may be more of my own hot take. It's not a very hot take, but maybe more of my own opinion than exactly what results are reflect. Actually, no, results reflect this too. I think Duraludon's really good for handling the Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult stuff.
Ted. Let's call it Ted.
Yeah, Ted. That is a better way to say it than what I've been doing.
VGC loves acronyms.
Yeah, they sure do. So, Duraludon, it needs some help with Excadrill, but if you can properly support it, it's really excellent for handling combinations of Togekiss and Dragapult, from my experience at least. Because, the scariest thing about Dragapult is if it's sitting next to Togekiss, there is practically no way to prevent it from getting off a Max Phantasm or a Max Wormwind. But because of Duraludon's Stalwart ability, if you can give your Duraludon Tailwind, that's probably the best response to Dragapult I can think of. Because there's no way it can get redirected. And it's even really good versus the Togekiss as well. And its max moves lower your opponent's attack and raise your defense. So if your opponent doesn't really start out aggressive with their Excadrill. If the Excadrill comes out later in the game, then hopefully you have some Steel Spike boost by then anyway, and you might be able to mess up its partners enough in the meantime with your boosts. So yeah, I think Drowlodon's really good response to them. It's a really bad response to Charizard, though, because it has really low special defense, and it's slower. I remember the first time I was using a Charizard team, this was like a month ago, I thought, okay, I'm just gonna set Sun, and I'm gonna regular Heat Wave the Drowlodon. But what happened? I think he had Tailwind, and he KO'd my Charizard with Max Lightning. But now that I know that, I know that I can just kind of just fry the Drowlodon with Max Flare.
Yeah, it just goes
if you
away.
max your own Charizard.
You would think that you could get away with switching dragons into a fire type, but
Yeah.
not this one.
No, not this one
Not
at
this
all.
one.
Yeah. As for Charizard, that is kind of a harder one to answer. It feels really weird saying this, but I think rain teams are not bad at all versus Charizard, because even though they typically have Sunny Day Whimsicott, if you have Pelipper Ludicolo, you could do like fake out the Whimsicott, break its sash, and then take it out with Pelipper. You maybe even max Airstream. No, that's probably not a good idea. That's not worth your max. But point is, you can take out their Whimsicott before it uses Sunny Day, and then from there, their Charizard to get Sun, they need to use Max Flare. But if they're using Max Flare, it means that they're not using Max Airstream.
Mm-hmm.
And that means they've wasted one of their own max turns using Max Flare in the rain. So that's my tentative answer for Charizard answers. Let me check some results for a sec.
It's like kind of tough to stop, I feel like.
Well, especially because
I've
like
I have-
100 speed
I've
is
tried
like
to, like-
actually really fast now.
Oh, it's super
Yes.
fast. It's anything faster than Excadrill is fast now.
That's, yeah, exactly.
But
Anything
it's just like
faster than 88?
with the dynamic speed changes, it's just like there's not a whole lot you can do to just like stop Charizard and Whimsicott from just like doing their thing. But yeah, so it's interesting that you feel like it's really like fallen into two archetypes, and I don't disagree. I feel the same way, that if you had to put things into like a quote unquote archetype, that those are the two that seem to be the most popular and successful overall.
One other one that I forgot about. Hard Trick Room.
Oh yeah.
Oh, isn't that kind of going away?
It seems to go away, and then it comes back, and then it goes away, and then it comes back, is what I've observed in the
I
past
wish
couple
it would go
weeks.
away.
I want it to just go away forever, but these teams with loads and loads of Trick Room support are very tough to handle, because
I think
Okay.
Butterfree in particular is like the worst one to play against.
yeah, Butterfree, usually they get the support of Butterfree, which can Rage Powder to redirect stuff away from your Trick Room setters and your attackers, but it can also Sleep Powder you, or if they
Just
if they
Polypuff.
think, yeah, they could also Pollen Puff you, or Pollen Puff their partner.
Yeah.
Butterfree is an extremely versatile Pokemon. Like, the fact that I've said so much about it before even mentioning Max Befuddle. Oh boy. Basically, yeah, Butterfree gives you enough of a challenge that you need to pay attention to it, but while you're combating the Butterfree, its partners are getting Trick Room and setting up in the background. It's a big headache to play versus.
Yeah, it is.
I'll credit most of their success to Rhyperior being a good Pokemon.
Yeah, Rhyperior is kind of
Yeah, it is.
insane. That's like the day one thing that I think some people noticed, and some people that I was playing games with and like watching were using Rhyperior, and That was like my
Mhm.
favorite thing,
It's-
like super early on, and looks like it's
Yeah,
persisting.
Solid Rock becomes really dumb when you double its HP.
Yes, it's definitely picked up a lot in the past couple of weeks.
So would
Yeah,
you say
just-
that there's anything like newer that is trending as we go towards regional season here?
More and more Rhyperior, even outside of Hard Trick Room.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It's been popping up on like what I could maybe call soft Trick Room, like
Mhm.
a bunch of mid-speed Pokemon
Yeah.
and then like 2 Trick Room attackers or so. It's like Eduardo Cunha's team that he won the 5th Galar Weekly with
Right.
Jellicent and Hydreigon and all of that. But I don't know if it's flavor of the week or if it's like actually really good, but I've actually been seeing Vanillux popping up.
Yeah,
on a lot
of teams
I was gonna
lately.
ask about that. And also, as speaking of ice tarps, Galarian Darmanitan is like starting to increase in
Yes.
usage as well. I think Sajin had
Him
a lot to
too.
do with that.
Yeah, the thing with Darmanitan is okay, so its ability, Guerrilla Tactics, gives you a free choice band. When you combine that with Scarf, it's really fast and it's really strong,
Mhm.
and it's really hard to do something about before it gets to attack one of your Pokemon.
Right.
You can't reliably redirect it because your Togekiss will get one hit KO'd by Icicle Crash if you don't intimidate it and you don't max your Togekiss. And you can't set up in front of it because your Dragapult will also get. Actually, Dragapult
It's a roll.
has. Yeah, it's like an 81% roll, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, Dragapult actually gets knocked out most of the time by Icicle Crash, even if it Dynamaxes.
That's insane.
Yep.
So, yeah,
I hate that.
That's a lot of
Darmanitan.
damage.
I think it's, along with Duraludon, I think it's one of those Pokemon that we should keep an eye on for handling that TED core,
Mhm.
because it just hits all of them so incredibly hard. Even the Excadrill that's not weak to Icicle Crash, it can use Flare Blitz on it, it can use Superpower on it, it can use Earthquake on it, it can even Icicle Crash, and that probably does boatloads of damage as well. Darmanitan's scary.
Yeah.
On the other side, Vanillux. Okay, I've seen 2 different kinds of Vanillux. One kind of similar to Darmanitan. You put a Choice Scarf on it, it's a little bit faster than Dragapult, and you get to use Blizzard. Hit the Togekiss, hit the Dragapult. Doing good. However, if they Dynamax their Dragapult, it's not going to get knocked out,
Mhm.
and the trade isn't always worth it. What I've been seeing more of, I'm not sure how much I agree with this. I kind of like the Scarf one more, but I've been seeing a lot of Focus Sash Vanillux as well,
Mm-hmm.
because
with the Aurora Veil, right?
Yeah, it gets Aurora
Yeah.
Veil, which is really incredible support in this Dynamax format, because if you can limit the amount of damage that your opponent does to you, that's great. If you can limit the amount of damage your opponent does to you while your Pokemon has double HP, that's really great. You're gonna feel invincible for 3 turns, and then fairly invincible for a couple more turns too, because of Aurora Veil.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
So-
with weakness policy.
Yeah.
Right. That's what makes Rhyperior so good, the weakness policy, but we're seeing it on stuff like Togekiss as well. I know I was using weakness policy Excadrill at my tournament last weekend. Honestly, like, the fact that weakness policy can go on anything
I
is
know.
kind of
Yeah, it's
scary.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Like,
I used to be
Dragapult.
like,
You could put it. That's when you double something's HP. Anything can happen.
yeah.
mhm.
I used to be like the biggest anti-weakness policy person. Like I used to hate it. I thought it was just a terrible item because like you just rely on taking a lot of damage from these hits. And like
Now you don't have to
example,
take a lot.
yeah, exactly. No, my biggest example is like weakness policy Aegislash back in like 14 and 15. I feel like you
Right.
like can survive a Dark Pulse from Hydreigon and pop your weakness policy, and now you're at 5%, and you can attack once. And like I don't
You
really
can
think that's
flash
worth it.
cannon.
Yeah, like now, like you're saying, these things have double HP. You can take pretty much any one attack, and even
Right.
even some of the Pokemon that use weakness policy without Dynamaxing, like Rhyperior, like you said, is like best example. Like this is a format
Mhm.
where not everything has the capability to do a bunch of damage at once. So
Right.
something like Rhyperior, especially if you get like Sand Up, it's got the boosted special defense, it's got Solid Rock. There's not much that's going to take it out, so Policy is like a really strong item now.
Right. And with the thing with maxing and weakness policy isn't just you take the lower damage because you're maxed, you survive the attack, you get your weakness policy, but then in the case of something like Rhyperior, you get to be using Max Quake.
Right.
Which is an attack that Rhyperior could not have possibly imagined before this game came out. Like, it's 130 power, ground type, raises your special defense. So every time you hit that, your Rhyperior and its partner is getting bulkier.
Mhm.
So I think, like, weakness policy is what gets the momentum rolling in your favor. And then those extra boosts that come with using your max moves is what really secures it. Similar stuff for Duraludon too. Getting a lot of Steel Spikes is good. Excadrill gets you Steel Spikes and Quakes as well. While I'm thinking about it, I'm actually surprised there aren't as many Max Knuckle users in the format.
Really?
Because that seemed to be... Okay, I think I have an idea of why there aren't as many Max Knuckle users.
It's the base power.
Yeah, it's the
just
base
does
power.
no damage, and then you just proc weakness policy for something else.
Well,
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah,
times if
you're-
you're using Max Knuckle, you're actually dropping
It's
the
weaker
BP, yeah.
Yeah, it's weaker than close
Weaker than close
Right.
combat. Weaker than Hammer Arm. Weaker. Yeah, it's hard to make use of. I remember people were trying it early in the format. I saw a lot of Conkelders maxing and Scrafties, but it seems like people are not doing that much anymore due to the weak base power of Max Knuckle.
Mm-hmm.
Max Airstream is kind of an interesting one because for the first couple weeks of the format, I really kind of just saw it as a Braviary attack.
Right.
But now Braviary's kind of dropped off. But you see more Max Airstream than ever because Togekiss is so popular now. It's
Mhm.
kind of come up in the past, like, 2 or 3 weeks or so. It's honestly kind of odd that a couple weeks ago you would consider Togekiss like a top 20 Pokemon, and now you'd consider it like a top 3 Pokemon,
Yeah.
probably, if you ask most people. But yeah, now you're seeing Max Airstream on that. Oh, and Corviknight as well. Corviknight's the other one that we kind of started the format with, and I don't know if it's too early to say this, but I think Corviknight's kind of dropped off the map.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Gyarados is kind of
Like-
coming up, though. That's another,
Gyarados, yes. Because it
Gyarados
gets
is good.
bounce.
Yeah.
And Charizard, of course.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and Charizard. Yeah,
And
so
then
you're seeing...
everything, I mean, just like everything in the world gets aerial ace too. So
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
I've seen
I-
Dracozolt.
I've seen
Max
Dracozolt.
Airstream, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen Dragapult use Max Airstream
Oh.
from
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Fly. So there's a lot of good boosting going on.
Yeah.
Uh,
It does seem like there are like 3 or 4 max moves that seem to be like either the best or like the most used. Those being
Mhm.
like Airstream,
Airstream.
Quake, Steel Spike. You could argue for Wormwind. But
Mhm.
those seem to be the big ones because their
Yeah,
effects are all just really good.
I would call those. I would not hesitate to say those are the 4 best
Yeah.
max moves.
Mhm.
If Max Flutterby was on a better attacking type,
Right.
I think it would be one of the best. But nobody's going to run bug moves just to drop special attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
but
really good
similar.
point.
Yeah.
You turn Dragapult? Is that something people are going to start using?
I mean, I guess if you really needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just.
Is there anything else that, like what can you say like what's a rising star right now?
I would say Duraludon's definitely picking up.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Although we've kind of known it's good for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that's been kind of plummeting? Like you mentioned Braviary, Corviknight.
Yeah, Corviknight's dropping off, I think, because people realize that the timer does not allow
Nah.
for Corviknight to play games the way it wants to.
Right.
Right.
Like bulk up roost kind of stuff.
Yep,
Mhm.
bulk up roost, iron defense roost. They don't work in with the 15-minute game timer we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that's not like dropped completely off the map, but has definitely been seeing less and less use over the past 6 weeks, is Tyranitar.
I was going to bring that one up too, yeah.
I was thinking of also of Rotom Wash. Seems
yes,
to have fallen off
him as well. Both of them. Both of those two Pokemon were at like 60% usage or so in my very first tournament.
Wow.
And they've just been dropping further and further. The case with Tyranitar, I think, is that it's a good Pokemon to max. Well, okay. It's not a good Pokemon to max. It's kind of a good Pokemon to max because
that's its problem.
It has really big stats, but its max moves are really bad. Like, Max Rockfall is not doing anything for it. Max Darkness lowers special defense. Max Knuckle is weaker than Superpower, and
it kind of goes back to like the big four. It doesn't really use any of them.
Right.
Like, I guess you could use like High Horsepower and Max Quake or something, but then
you could.
That's just
then you're just pretending to be Rhyperior,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. It can Steel Spike as well. I mean,
Iron Tail.
Yep, great move.
So my experience with Tyranitar is lately it just feels like a make Excadrill fast button.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing, honestly.
It's not a bad thing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Having a fast Excadrill is great.
You could argue that Hippowdon is better.
I was about to say, I'm starting to consider Gigalith, and I'm starting to consider Hippowdon.
I like Gigalith a lot.
I love Gigalith. Gigalith, I think, has a slightly better time pretending to be Rhyperior than Tyranitar does, because it doesn't have the 4X fighting weakness.
I'm a huge Body Press stan as well.
Yeah, Body Press is great, especially when you're using Steel Spike with your partner. That's something to think about with Hippowdon. I'll remember that for later.
I'll write that down.
Yeah, Hippowdon gets Body Press. But yeah, Tyranitar, just at the start of the format, it felt like such a great Pokemon. Nothing can KO it while it's maxed. Well, maybe some really strong fighting moves can. Basically, nothing can KO it. It can get weakness policy, but it does not have a good time making use of its max turns, and it loses to a lot of the things that people are using to handle Rhyperior, like a lot of these Pokemon with Will-O-Wisp.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything when it's Wisped. I wonder if it seems almost like it was just kind of like a holdover from previous formats, where it's just like always been so good that
people
the knee jerk is to try and put like Tyranitar and Rotom.
Right.
It also kind of like fits that storyline as well.
Right. I think, with Rotom, I remember it started out the season in like top 3 Pokemon, more than 50% usage.
Wow.
It's been dropping as Rotom Wash specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't really have good max moves either.
No.
Right, that's its issue. If you max Lightning with it, you're not on the ground. You don't get your terrain. You can set Rain. That's basically its only max move. If you run Dark Pulse, you can lower their special defense, but I don't think that's how I want to spend my Dynamax turns. But yeah, with the thing with Rotom is at the start of the format, it felt like, Rotom could handle a lot of these things in like the top 10 or so. But then the things in the top 10 that it could handle, like Excadrill, started running Mold Breaker, so it could destroy Rotom. And
like it has a really bad time against like Dragapult.
Yep, and then stuff like Dragapult got more popular. Togekiss started running weakness policy, so it's not even safe to Thunderbolt it anymore. Arcanine.
Duraludon.
Yeah, you always lose to Duraludon.
You don't beat Gyarados.
I know.
Oh yeah, Gyarados gets Power Whip. How ridiculous. Gastrodon got really popular. That wasn't good for Rotom. And it's not very useful at all versus any of the Trick Room setters because it just doesn't do enough damage.
Yeah. I've never liked Rotom. It can go. That's one that I will not miss.
Yeah, I'm cool with him being not the best he's been. Oh, but Rotom Cut's been pretty decent, I want to say.
Yeah,
Well,
it seems like
I'll
just
say more than decent.
in the absence of other grass types.
Yes, that's
Exactly
what I think it is.
Like going back to the whole
Every
airstream.
single grass type was cut from the decks.
All of them.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the fact that it's a grass type that doesn't get like doinked by a max airstream is actually really good for it too, I think. It's like-
Yes, totally agreed. I think, yeah, that's what it boils down to. That we need good grass types. Rotom is the closest thing we have to a good grass
It
type.
does its best.
Yeah. And it doesn't get booped by Excadrill either.
True, yeah.
Right. It doesn't have good max moves, but it can burn Excadrill without worrying too much. It has a pretty... Okay, versus Rhyperior, if they have a way to set off their own weakness policy, you can struggle with that. But if you burn them, you're doing okay.
Right.
Kind of.
And they have to they have to find a way to not get killed by Leaf Storm too, is the thing.
Right. So they need to, like, if you have a way to at least hit the Rhyperior once before it gets in Trick Room and gets its boost, you're doing pretty okay. Also, you can max your Rotom to survive the Rockfall.
True.
So,
Big
it's,
lawnmower.
yeah, real big lawnmower.
Are you noticing any differences between like teams in different like competitive settings at like between Showdown and Battle Spot or like Galar Weeklies or IRL tournaments, or do you find usually that like things trend similarly?
I will say I've been bringing up this Pokemon so much. I apologize, but the in real life tournaments in the past weekend reflect a lot more Rhyperior use than Pokemon Showdown does, and it reflects more use than my online tournaments do. So, like, I would consider it like a top maybe 12 or so Pokemon from the from my online tournaments, and on Showdown it's number 14. But if you look at the stats from the in real life tournaments, it's like number 7, and it's really close to number 6. So more Rhyperior usage, more Duraludon usage as well. This is from the real life tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
More Gyarados. I can't explain that one very much.
That one's been popping up on like the Sideswagger Grimmsnarl teams. Like that's what Caleb did well with in New York
with Lumberry.
Yeah,
Gyarados. Yeah.
Also, Gyarados is the best grass type in the
Stop.
Yeah, exactly. It gets Power Whip. It's a Gastrodon check. I'm seeing. Oh, happy about that one. There is okay. After 6 weeks of Galar Weekly tournaments and like 80 or so Pokemon, probably more, maybe like 100 or so different Pokemon being used, there is still nobody who has made top 16 in the Galar Weekly with Gothitelle.
Interesting.
But it's seeing a lot of use in the real life tournaments this weekend.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 7% usage in real life tournaments. It's higher than Corviknight, it's higher than Butterfree, it's higher than Scrafty and Sylveon.
Isn't there a team going around that uses Gothorita on the same team?
Oh dear.
Yes, I think Alex Underhill has been using that
is that
team.
who's
How
using
dare
it?
he.
Yeah, there's some pair stuff. Yeah,
Let me pull it up for a
with
second.
Lapras and Sandaconda.
Oh, that's okay. That's like something.
Yeah,
Alex
that's
would do.
stuff you've seen it. Yeah.
So, we actually have this team search tool thanks to a collaborator with our project, Adrian. His Twitter handle is AdrianYWH. There's a link to it on VGCStats. But with our team search tool, we can look for any Pokemon and pull up all the teams that used it.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, by looking for Gothorita, I have found Alex Underhill. Got top 4 at 2 different mid-season showdowns this weekend. He's got Gothorita, Gothitelle, Lapras, Duraludon, Rhyperior, and Arcanine.
Ew.
Oh, he doesn't have Sandaconda. Oh, okay.
He doesn't have Sandaconda. I'm glad you mentioned it. So this is one Perish Trap team that tries to use these 2 trapping Pokemon to keep you in for long enough to just get knocked out by a Perish Song. And the fact that both of the Goths, I'm pretty sure both of them get Fake Out now, means maybe it can work without Incineroar, without Mega Gengar.
Yeah,
because you can just permanently cycle Fake Out and Trap. Oh my god.
Oh, that sounds
Right.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, sounds awful to play versus. And it definitely gets done in timer.
True.
It sounds
yeah.
even harder to play against with Alex playing it because he plays that Trick Room stuff so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has 4 other very good Pokemon that he can use.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I like this at all.
All right.
But,
So anyway, let's talk about final thoughts. I know you've talked about Duraludon and Rhyperior the most. Is there anything else that you would like to leave listeners with as far as things to think about based on the usage stats?
That is a good question. I'm gonna need a second.
What's like your sleeper pick? If you
There's a lot going on.
Sleeper pick for the tournament. Honestly, it's okay. I haven't used it very much myself, but the scariest thing for a lot of teams right now, I think, is Darmanitan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Darmanitan's very powerful. I think, honestly, if you can find a decently defensive Pokemon with some, defensive, but also with existent offensive stats, and you can put it under screens with Grimmsnarl, and you can give it a weakness policy, I think you can get some really good free wins with that. For example, Lapras. It doesn't have the best max moves, but I've seen
it with Mudsdale.
Yeah, Mudsdale's a really incredible one. One other thing about that. Well, one last thought when team building. Make sure you have enough things faster than Butterfree.
Yeah.
Things faster than, but yeah, all of a sudden it's necessary. It's not that fast, but
I think you have
enough.
to be 136 to be faster than it. I think that's the speed.
Okay.
There's,
have Butterfree answers. have good max moves. If you're going to a regional in the next 2 weekends, before you decide on your team to lock in, just look at all 6 Pokemon, ask yourself, what is this Pokemon doing for this team? Is it covering any weaknesses that my other Pokemon have? Would it be better as something else? I know it's very easy to get attached to Pokemon, but this game changes very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, sometimes comfort is best, but
That's good advice. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always
It's like
think
general
about
life advice.
Yeah. Pokemon advice, life advice. Always just be thinking, what does this Pokemon do for me? Would it be better as something else? Do I have to spend too many resources covering its weaknesses?
Mhm.
That's part of the issue I have with Snorlax in this format. It feels like it takes too much support.
Mm-hmm.
But I could talk about that some other time.
Yeah. So we ended with general life advice.
There we go.
Basically, don't be dumb when you're team building. Don't be an idiot. Changed my life. Okay. So the last thing is, usually when we have guests on, Zach, we ask if you have a question that you would like to ask us as the final piece of the interview here.
Oh boy.
It can be as relevant or irrelevant as you would like.
Oh man, I forgot to think of one. I'm gonna need a second.
I'm trying to think. I feel like Aaron set the bar really
That's what I was
high.
gonna say.
Oh, with the candle
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came with I think he had something else and then came up with that like on the spot or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand his mind, but I'm so entirely glad that it exists.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate Aaron a lot. Oh, okay. It's very VGC related.
That's okay.
I'm into it.
It might be 2 questions. It's an easy question and then a kind of harder question.
Go for it.
First question, when do you think they'll make the next bunch of Gigantamaxes legal?
When do you think they'll make them available or like create them?
They'll make the VGC legal. Like they just announced
yeah.
today that Lapras is going to be in the event.
Right.
Probably the next
I don't think it'll be
Battle
until
Stadium
after
season.
the regionals. Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes more
I think that's in
sense, you're right.
February.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's probably like the next regional cycle. That makes sense, yeah.
That sounds about right. And my related question is, what are the ones you're most excited for? Or most scared of?
Lapras.
The Gigantum. I mean, yeah, Lapras
Definitely.
is, I think when they allow solar power Charizard is going to be really scary.
Yeah, 1/8 HP is no joke.
Yeah, that's
every
a lot.
turn.
And then I think we'll see Gengar a little bit more once we get that one as well. Gengar seems like it'll be good.
I think Gengar's limited by like one of its main stab moves having the same issue as fighting, in that Sludge Bomb's BP. Does it change at all, or does it stay 90?
I think it's the same actually.
Yeah,
Maybe it goes up
it
by
doesn't
5.
drop, and I guess like you're still boosting that attack. I don't know, but like my answer is Lapras. I like Aurora Veil. You talked about a little bit is crazy good. Setting up Aurora Veil.
Lapras is like not bad on its own either. So.
Yeah, like setting up Aurora Veil while attacking and not needing Hail to be up is kind of scary.
And Ice is a really good attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a really good type.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
And can I ask you?
The ones that also of the ones that already exist, I hate Sandaconda a lot more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was something
really
silly, but then it just got third in my last tournament. There were like 260 people playing in it, and then this team with Sandaconda, Sanduscorch, Pincurchin, Aromatisse, and Scrafty and Lapras. I'm just like, what does this do? It's Paris Trap. But instead of a Gothitelle, he uses the two worms with their G-Max moves that trap you, Scorch and Sandaconda. And I guess a lot of people didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. It's the trap snakes, baby. Did you have one more, Zach?
Oh yeah, one other question. I have a more tone-appropriate question. What's your favorite Alchemy color?
I was actually just talking to Regina about this the other day. I think the Ruby Cream is my favorite. That's like the pink one with like the darker red trim.
That's the one I got. That's the one I used in my playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. Like, I don't know them. Like, I'm kind of exposing myself here. I really don't know the different.
I can't believe
I
this,
know.
Jake.
I didn't use it in the playthrough. I don't think I even have one like registered in my Pokédex. So I don't really have a good answer for you. But I'm sure that your answers are beautiful.
All you have to do is shake your Milcery, Jake.
I don't even have a Milcery, I don't think. I don't know. No, yeah, I do. I think I caught one.
Rare.
I think I found one, and I caught it. I just never bothered evolving it. So I apologize for my ignorance in this.
Well, you have some studying to do tonight.
I do, yeah.
I'll expect an answer by tomorrow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up there. Thanks so much for coming on with us, Zach. And
thanks for having me.
Brendan, no, you're not about to cut this off without doing music.
Oh, are we doing that
Always.
now? I thought we would. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
My gosh, I can't.
Carry on.
I needed a co-host. Zach, are you free every other week or so?
It's not like I haven't done this before.
All right. As always, I love music. I force everyone else around me to love music. So my music recommendation this week is the soundtrack to the movie Mamma Mia. I really don't
That would
have.
drive me crazy. I just.
I really don't have a good explanation for it. I was just like at work one day, and I like remembered that movie existed, and I was like, oh, I liked that music. I'm gonna listen to it today. And then I like kept pressing play when it ended, and so I've been singing ABBA on accident for about a week now, and that's where I'm at.
So for me, I was just on a cruise for the last couple days. So the only music that I've heard the past week has been like, they had this like steel drum guy that just like played the steel drum for like 4 hours while I was sitting by the pool.
Oh hell yeah!
Then that's pretty much. His name was Jesse Fedora. He was great.
Jesse Fedora. Really embracing that identity.
So yeah, go and look up Jesse Fedora. He's playing Carnival Cruise Lines right now. There you go. Just like a fount of musical and cultural creativity this week. Anything, Zach?
Anything for music?
Yeah.
Oh, Stream Emotion by Carly Rae
Hell
Jepsen.
yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you know your audience.
Oh,
The
I
best
sure
album of the
do.
2010s. And it's not even close.
All right.
And I'm a big Taylor Swift stan. Listen, but Emotion by Carly. Oh, God.
So
okay.
good.
Anyway, great album. Best album. Now, is it okay with
Yes,
you if I wrap
you
up
have
now,
my
Jake?
approval.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Zach, thank you for coming on.
Yay, thank you.
We're
Thanks
going to
for
put
having
the
me.
links to all of Zach's things into the description for our podcast. And, of course, you can find him on his own Twitter handle. Does it have an underscore or anything, Zach? I'm going to
Nope.
mess it up.
It's just letters.
Just at Profshroomish.
Yeah, that's right.
And then at VGCStats. So no underscores. Like if you've ever been trying to find Jake, I know it's hard.
It's so annoying.
So again, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Yeah.
And again, make sure you, our listeners, check out these resources. This is, like we said, like one of the, if not the most important resource available to you for team building, just kind of like familiarizing yourself with the format. And as always, sign up for the Galler Friendlies.
Mm-hmm.
They're no
We're
longer
not
the Galler
weekly
Weeklies.
anymore.
They're not weekly anymore. I played in one, and I went X3, I think. But it was a lot of fun, so definitely sign up for that if you're looking for some practice or you're familiarizing yourself with a Switch or whatever. So thank you, Zach. Jake and I are going to take the briefest of breaks, and we'll be right back to wrap this week's episode up, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm still Brendan, and he's still Jake. We're going to wrap up episode 14 here. Hopefully we're able to bring you guys some new information this week, or at least kind of to clarify some of the things that you were already thinking about, what's going on in the format. Maybe now you know a little bit better what to expect, but we're just kind of hoping that we were able to give you at least something so that you can take this knowledge with you to Bochum, take this knowledge with you to Dallas, and knock it out of the park. And then when you write your team reports, you can say thanks, Brendan and Jake. And that's why we do it, is for the recognition.
We want stream shoutouts. Whenever you hear our advice and take it and do well when you're on stream.
Yep.
Thanks to Soundproof. Listen to the Soundproof cast on Twitter.
Listen, everybody has thanked Wolf and Aaron for their content before, okay?
That's
let's
true.
thank Jake and Brendan.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck at your first majors if you're going to Dallas or Bochum. I don't actually know how to say that. Bochum.
I just kind of assume.
Yeah,
I'm
that one. The one in
pronouncing
Germany.
it correctly, but
Good luck in either of those regionals, any regionals you go to in the near future. Or the
Yep.
far future,
And Jake-
really. Just good luck.
Jake and I will both be at Dallas,
That's
so
correct.
if you want to come say hi to us,
I'll be
please
signing
feel free to
autographs.
do so.
Yeah.
Good luck to me. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some of y'all there. And again, good luck with your tournaments and have fun in the Gala region.